Well, hello again, slot car fans. This is the latest video for the channel, Braid Runner, and we're going to take a change of direction with this one. So the videos you've seen so far have been A1 to A10, and those all relate to the US Nationals, the build-up and the race itself. I'm now going to launch into the B series of videos, if you like. This is going to be to do with a complete the other end of the spectrum from the racing side of the hobby. So we're going to go from the white hot intensity of the US Nationals. We're going to go down to the hobby model maker, scratch builder end of the hobby. Now it's something that I really enjoy. The engineer in me wants to do this kind of stuff. And I like seeing cars on track that I've built myself, I've painted myself, and what have you. Whether it's for racing or whether it's just for casual laps, I just enjoy, car building. So that's what the B series of videos is going to be about. B1 to B whatever number I end up with, and each video will hopefully be a bit shorter, and I'm going to cover a car that I've built in the past. Let's go straight into it. The car I'm going to cover today is one that I did in the early years of my interest in slot cars, and you can tell by the screensaver on my PC there in the background which car it is. It's a Grand Prix car, and it's from the 1979 season. It had a very short-lived career, this car, and it is the Lotus 80. The Lotus 80 had a real checkered history. It had a very short history, and the reason is because it didn't work, which is a tremendous shame, because it was a very courageous step into an aerodynamic solution that would have paid enormous dividends if they could have made it to work. The car had big boots to fill. The Lotus 79 from the previous series, in the hands of Mario Andretti, won the championship, and alongside Ronnie Peterson in the number 6 car, they were pretty dominant for the whole season. So this car had a lot to live up to, and just fell short, unfortunately. So there's two variants. Let's have a look at the first one, the prototype that you see in the foreground here. First thing you'll notice, no front wing, no real rear wing either, and a fully enclosed body as well, worth noting. This car was all about aerodynamics. It was felt that if it worked, the side pods would generate all the downforce, no need for a front wing, no need for a rear wing, with the associated reduction in drag. So straight line performance would have been off the charts for a custom Cosworth car, which this was at the time. It may have been still outshone maybe by the flat 12 Ferrari and the flat 12 and later V12 Alfa Romeo that was coming down the track, and almost definitely by the later incarnations of the Renault Turbo, the 1.5 litre turbo that was still in its infancy at this stage. So from the standpoint of the field that it was competing against, this car would have been quite a beast. And it would have got its performance from the aerodynamic step forward. However, wasn't to be. The car did not work, and when it raced, you saw it in the car in the configuration that you see there in the background, with conventional front wing and a much more conventional rear wing. Why didn't it work? I think there's a couple of reasons. It was just potentially too ambitious. Let's just leave it at that. I think that was probably the reason why it didn't end up working. Unfortunately, it was so below expectations in its performance that midway through the year, Lotus reverted back to the Lotus 79, running the Martini livery that you see, but the Lotus 79. And the shame was that by that stage, the competition had caught up, notably, Williams, Brabham, although Brabham were in a funny stage at that time. They were running an Alfa Romeo, but it was a competitive package, and of course Tyrrell put together a pretty good car that year as well, and Ligier with the JS11, which was really a very, very good car for the time. So why didn't the Lotus 80 work? Well, I'll illustrate using the car that I built. You'll see the side pods have got a curved profile on the outside edge, and that's because they wanted to keep the tunnels, the integrity of the tunnels as much as possible, the Venturi tunnels under the car. So you had this curved profile, and for that you need curved skirts to match the profile, and that was a difficulty of the time. Skirts were quite new at the time, only been running for about a season or so, and curved skirts were another level again, and I think Lotus struggled to get them to work. The other thing is it ran a second set of skirts, so let's call the outside edge, let's call those the outboard skirts. It also ran a set of inboard skirts, which was on the other side of the side pod and next to the chassis, and it would have run along this edge here along the chassis, and let's call that the inboard skirt, and there was obviously another one here on the other side of the chassis. Okay, and the intention is obviously to keep the low pressure air contained as much as possible, you know, in the Venturi section of the side pod before it exits through the tunnels at the rear. Okay, and this skirt arrangement was just very complicated for the time. It was very, very complicated. You know, it was a serious step on from the Lotus 79, and so yeah, the car was probably pitch sensitive, roll sensitive, and yeah, it was decided when the car rolled out on the track in a competitive meeting, it needed front wings and rear wings, which of course went against the whole, you know, philosophy of running a low drag car. So it lost all competitiveness straight away, which is a real shame. I would have liked to have seen this car work. So my car, my build, obviously uses donor components, you know, for the necessary areas. I'll go through those in a second, but the rest of it, the bodywork and the chassis, is scratch built by me. So let's look at the donor components first. Scale electric wheels and tyres from the time. The Formula One series of cars that Scale Electric did came with these treaded tyres. I was going to say groove, but they're not groove tyres, they're treaded tyres. So they're meant to look like a rain tyre. And wheels also were Scale Electric wheels. The rear axle was MRRC, came from an MRRC donor car, along with the motor. And the motor is not your, you know, standard Scale Electric motor. It is an MRRC motor. You can see the magnet there in the middle with the motor shaft running through the middle of it, and there's another one at the other end of the motor as well before we get to the pinion. And on each side of those magnets there is a metal rail, and it's that carries the magnetic flux for the motor that interacts with the armature. Coincidentally, the spacing of those metal rails was pretty much the same as the power rails on the Scale Electric tracks that we used to run on. So this car had quite a bit of magnetic downforce as well, so it was very stable and very quick. So front wheels, as I mentioned earlier, again, Scale Electric wheels, Scale Electric tyres. They're really falling apart now after 46 years. And the slot guide as well would have been an MRRC guide as well. So those are the donor components. They're the things I didn't really want to make myself. I do know people who make wheels and tyres, and you know, some people will build motors themselves. You know, they'll strip down a motor and put different armature in or whatever. This was just donor components going straight into my car. So it's built from styrene card, and you know, fundamentally it's a box section that runs the length of the car, and into that box section the motor slots in and happens to have a couple of screws, threaded holes, so you could screw the motor in place, which is what I did. And I then drilled a hole in the back of the box section for the rear axle to go through, and that creates the gearbox. So you know, at the time when I built it, the mesh was good, and the car worked. Over time, you can see it's lost its integrity, and the rear teeth have stripped, and you know, that's it's no longer functional, unfortunately. So it's a very simple design: a box section which carries the motor, the rear axle. It carried a front axle at the time as well. It carried the front axle across the width of the car, and it also carried the slot guide under there, which are of course all the essentials you need for a running slot car. On top of that, I then put the bodywork, and the bodywork is just sheets of styrene card cut to shape. Okay, some complex curves here. You've got the curve of the top surface of the side pod, because it is a curve. It looks flat, but it's actually got a bit of a curve on it. And then you've got the sideways curve of the side pod, which I mentioned earlier as well. So you've got a curve meeting a curve, but with styrene you can do that. You can actually, make complex shapes. So yes, there's a bit of an aerodynamic port here, which was on the real car, and the trim tab at the back is just a little strip of card as well. And then the underside of the car is very similar, actually. It's just, again, one big sheet of styrene card glued in place with an upturn at the back to create the Venturi tunnel space. So if I show you, what's the best way to do that? If I show you the tunnel space there, you can see, hopefully, you can see that there's the flat section, and then there's the tunnel section, and the tunnel section has got those fillets on them, and I just did that with filler. So once I had the shape that the basic shape that I wanted, I then put some filler on my finger. I run it down there like that, just to create those fillets that you see. And that was a feature of the real car, and that's why I wanted to build this car, because it was such an outlandish step in terms of an aerodynamic design, which unfortunately didn't quite work. I think it was just a little bit too ambitious for the time, unfortunately. But it caught my eye. I wanted to build it, and so I did. So the first step was putting the box section in place. The next step was putting the bodyworks in place, sanding it down, making sure I've got everything looking the way I want it to look, and then doing the paint job. And the paint job was fairly simple. Brush and Humbrol enamel, British Racing Green, plus the Martini livery that you see as per the real car. So yes, everything's hand painted. There were no decals back in the day, and that's why you see a lot of variation in the paint job from left to right, etc. So at the time I was really happy with it. It ran well. It won pretty much every race it entered. It won the championship that we ran at the time. Not a big championship, it was just me and my mates, putting our scratch built cars on the track and having fun. But it went well, and I got a lot of pleasure from running a car that I built and painted myself. So that's a scratch built car. You don't have to go so far as that if you don't want to. You can take a body off of an existing slot car if you want. Take the glass out if it's a road car based car. Take the glass, take the wing mirrors off, take the wings off, headlights if it's got them, and sand it back and paint it the colour that you want, and put some decals on it, and then put some clear coat over the top, put the mirrors and windows and wings back on, etc., and all the accessories, and screw it back onto the chassis, put it on the track and run it. It's as simple as that. It really is. You might be surprised at the results you get. So yes, that's a scratch built car. I'll be doing more of these with other cars that I've built through the years. There's not a huge number, but you'll see that as I've got better through the years, the results get better. And it's not just me getting better as well, it's also the suppliers. The paint technology and the decals that we can get access to nowadays are so much better as well. So yes, I'll be doing a few of those. But for now, we need a cookie. And the cookie is a racing inspired film, and it's this one. And I love this film. It's a great representation of the 1971 Le Mans race, the 24-hour race. It's not a true story. It is a scripted story, but it's very realistic, very, very realistic. Steve McQueen is the star, alongside some beautiful, beautiful racing machinery. In particular, the Porsche 917K with its flat 12, I should say, flat 12 4.5 or 5 litre engine, whichever model it was, and the Ferrari 512S with its V12 5-litre. Beautiful cars, beautiful cars. It's a good film. It's a racing film. It's not a a thriller or a spy movie with racing as a sideline or anything like that. It is a racing movie, well worth a watch. So enjoy that one, and I will see you on the next video. Until then, be kind to someone today. Okay, cheers now. Bye.